Welcome to the latest edition of Here's What We Know, the podcast of unexpected conversations. Before I get started, as I always do, thank you, our sponsors. Without them, this just doesn't happen. This is one of those guests. We have a mutual friend, Jeff Bloomfield, who's been a guest on this show, and I've been on his. And he goes, you need to talk to Johnny. And I'm like, all right. And I start doing Johnny, and I look, I do my stuff, figure out who Johnny is. Yours may be the longest bio page I've ever read in my entire life. You have packed in. I need to know, it's going to hurt my feelings. I need to know that you're 87 years old. And you know why that's going to hurt my feelings? Because if you are, and you look like that, it's really going to irk me. This is Johnny Sirpilla, and we're going to cover everything. He's also written this amazing book called Life is Hard, But I'm Okay. And he's done everything, include being on the board of directors for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And you're talking to a big football fan here. So we're going to go down that. Johnny, how are you?
Gary, it is so good to be with you today. And I'll tell you, my bio is only long-winded because I'm long-winded, right? And so I can't have a short bio and talk this much. So that's why. And
it's no way. Gary's bio, Born Radio Podcast. Thank you, done. Johnny.
There you go.
Miami University, not the University of Miami, not the U.
That's right.
We're talking about the one in Ohio where I think Ben Roethlisberger played.
That's right. Big Ben. Absolutely.
Right? And went from there. And in 1992, you were already running a very successful business where I was just trying to pay my car note. You're one of those people, and I get this really sneaky suspicion that you're younger than me, and you were already that guy.
I think I'm older than you.
I doubt it.
I'm not 87, although I'd rather tell you I'm 87 because that was a great compliment that you gave me, but I'm 57.
You're younger than me. Shut up. I See, that's what happened. But you look so good because if you don't see the video, I know the majority of you guys listen to this podcast, but if you can, go check out the YouTube page because as I said, when Johnny came on, Johnny is living the fashion life I want to live. I want to have his hair, and then I want to be able to wear the glasses that he wears. And you told me glasses are your thing.
Well, actually, it's my second thing because, Gary, you were kind enough to compliment me on my hair, but I won prettiest hair in high school, right? So, when you win an award like that, so young, you almost kind of max out your potential. I mean, it's all downhill from there. And so, for me, I'll tell you, winning that, it's like, some people want most athletic or most likely to succeed. I was going for the prettiest hair and I got it.
So, you know what? This is what Facebook happened, right? When I was in high school, I was known because I had what we call the white man's afro. And my hair was so big that I could turn into it before it moved. And that's what I was known for. And then I moved away from the small town in Alabama that I'm from. And you lose contact. Well, then when Facebook happened, people could find you and start seeing you again. And the number one comment from people I grew up with is, where's your hair? What happened to your hair? And it was everything that I could do to say your second chin ate it. That's what I wanted to say.
Well, Gary, as we age, a lot of people, worry about hair. And I get that. I mean, I have to worry about mine too, because I have to, every 10 days, I have it thinned to get rid of the excess hair that's growing, because as a full-blooded Italian, it would be, just huge without all this effort of getting it thinned every 10 days. So
you're dead to me.
Yeah, no, I have to. I really do. I really do. Back in the 80s in high school, I would sleep I'd wet my hair down at night. And then, because probably I had hair similar to you, and except for in mullet form, which was rocking. And then I put on a wet ski cap over my wet hair so I could have bangs like my friends did, because they all kind of had this cool hair and mine was just so huge. So I slept with, wet hair and a ski cap on.
Oh, man. Are you old enough to remember your mother with a beehive hairdo and how they would wrap it in toilet paper? They would wrap it in toilet paper before they went to bed to try to keep it intact.
Of course. And my mom still has amazing hair at 85.
Wow. The things that women do to themselves. I have 4 sisters, so I can say this with kind of impunity. The things that they do to themselves are just beyond. With guys, you just make your hair stick straight up like you do, Johnny. And then you throw in a sweet pair of glasses and now we're done, right?
And we're good to go.
Everything else and all the stuff they do, because you're full-blooded Italian. I went to my wife turned 50 and she wanted to do a big thing. She wanted to go to Italy. So we went and spent 2 weeks in Italy. And that was delightful. The pasta's just as good as they say it is. I'm going to say something right now that's going to make you as a full-blooded Italian hate me. Pizza, not so much. I think we do it better here, but that's just me, right? Because the bread is so thick and there's so little. And we were in Florence, Venice, Sicily, right? But it was just so bready and so little sauce and so few choices. But, I think the Italians got over here to America and said, wait, what all can we put on this stuff? Yes, let's do that.
But the simplicity is what makes it so amazing. And also in Italy, we've gone over about 5 times and even seen family, but it's really just the bread of your meal.
It is the bread.
Yeah. So then there's a whole other meal. And the pizza is just, kind of like bread. So it's the simplicity in Italy that makes it. I make it into a meal.
I had to learn this phrase, sono sazio. You know what that means? Sono sazio. I'm full. I'm done. Stop bringing me food. Stop bringing me food. You lie. I have internal organs that weigh more than you, Johnny, right now. Right now. You know what I don't like about people like you, Johnny? You're obviously a quitter. You don't eat the whole bowl. You're a quitter.
I'm a quitter. I do struggle for my trainer getting in the calories that he wants me to get in every day.
Oh my gosh.
It's a little difficult, but I'm determined. Every day I say, today I'm going to hit 2,200, and it's just hard to do.
It's the exact opposite. By 9 a.m., I'm like, oh my God, I've hit 2,200. Were you always, because as I sit back and go through this, because you had an RV store, right? And you were the biggest, best RV store. And I'm just paraphrasing right now, just to give you guys an everything. But the RVs, you go in Miami, you go in accounting, you get all this stuff, you get your education up. You're obviously driven beyond belief. Was it a family RV business, or did you go, no, here's something I think I can make a go of?
No, Gary, I'm not that smart. So my dad said that in the 50s. He had a gas station, and he said, these tent campers, this is interesting. He and his brother had a gas station. They started buying those and then started selling them. And then it just grew. So when I came along in the late 80s to take over for my dad, it was there and established. And so I did not have the idea of it, but I was really honored to kind of step in as that second generation. And then I had some fun with that for about 15 years.
But you had vision.
The opportunity to sell it.
Yeah, but you took the thing and you built it. I mean, and I understand your modesty, and I think it's very sweet. But you took what your dad, and I think your dad would be the first to say, oh, you kicked it into the next gear.
Well, thank you. Thank you. You know what? As a team effort, we great people. It was a family environment. It truly was. And, with aunts and uncles and cousins, and then employees that were family. So back in those Sirpilla RV days, it was awesome. It was absolutely awesome. And then, I kind of wanted to make my imprint in the industry the way that my dad did in the 50s as a pioneer dealer. And then Camping World was just getting going, and I sold to Camping World, and then was blessed to become the president and chief business development officer there for about 15 years until I retired. And it was just a amazing experience. So yeah, the RV industry, even though I don't RV, I love the business model of it, and it keeps families together. And I'm all about that.
I don't mind RVs unless I'm driving through a mountainous pass and I'm behind one. Then I'm not.
Yeah, they annoy you, don't they?
They become that way. Isn't it amazing? And I say this as somebody who's on the inside of the industry or used to be on the inside of the industry. There's literally no limit to what people would take on an RV, right? I mean, people love RVs. You can make them as expensive as you want to be. I remember I had a buddy of mine who, this is years ago, this is back in the 90s. And he came to the golf course in an RV. And I mean, and he proceeds to make it expand, right? So you've seen that where they expand on both sides and he comes in and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're wanting this is not I want to get it away from it all. This is I want to take everything with me. And there's just no limits, is there? I mean, there's people who'll spend $500,000 million on an RV.
For sure. And it's taking the comforts of home with you on the road, right? Why sleep in a hotel bed in a stranger's bed that other people have been in when you can have your own? So it's a great way to see the country, for sure. And great family time.
Were you always that way? Were you always driven? I mean, what was the 15-year-old Johnny Sirpilla like?
He was anxious, perfectionist, driven and pushing hard, fully supported by my parents, but they were both drivers and pushers. I mean, my mom was equally as strong as my dad, and she started a business with my sister when she was 47, and she works 6 days a week today at 85 years old. So, I was driven at 15 and, had some pretty high expectations of what I could achieve. So I always put a lot of pressure on myself, too much.
Now, because I was listening to you on Jeff's podcast, and I thought this was interesting, that you had said they were wonderful parents, they provided for you, but they had high expectations. They put expectations on you.
Yeah, they did. And you know what was awesome about my parents is there was no boundaries to the love that they would give and the support. But what they said, and then actually as well with generosity of things, right? Great vacations and a nice home growing up and cars when you turn 16, or I should say car, when you turn 16. But what my parents said to us, and we always knew this, is what they expect back from us in terms of honoring the family name, respect, integrity, hard work ethic, all those things. They said, we don't have enough money to give you in exchange for back what we expect from you. So I could truly say that I never felt spoiled by my parents, because while there might be nice things, the expectation of how we acted in our character in representing our family name, you had to be, at your best. I say that and it almost sounds like my parents were too much. They weren't. They wanted you to be at your best, and I wanted to honor my mom and dad. So, I love the way that they would say that, we don't have enough to give you to make this exchange equal because we expect that much from you. And they set the standard, then you reached and try to meet it.
Yeah, when I heard that, it struck with me because, again, here's a little of my story. Not that it's going to make this about me. There were no expectations on me or from me because it's not the world they grew up in. My parents grew up in rural South. Their parents lived through World War I. They lived through World War II. Education was never a priority. But you went to school because you had to, but they expected you, if you got 16, 17, if you wanted to drop out of school, then once you're no longer legally bound. And I say that my father had issues. My mother was playing 3D chess, right? And I was trying to figure out how to get the band off of cards. But that's why she was raised, right? There was a different level. You worked, you had your kids, you worked at the factory, you died at 56. Or 54, which is what my father did. But there was that no expectation. And so I found I had to find it within myself, right? To go, this education thing, that's interesting. I don't want to live this life, and I'm going to do something of it. And my mother was completely supportive of me. Don't think she wasn't. She wasn't. But I found it interesting how, the the different lives. And when I heard that from you, I'm like, I need to ask him. I wonder what that was like. And I don't say it with envy and I don't say it with judgment. I just wanted to see what it was like.
Yeah, I'll tell you, there's similarities. I mean, my parents did go to college. My grandparents, all came from Italy. So, we don't have a long tenure here in the States, but, they wanted me to have, and I bet your mom was the same way. They wanted me to have the life experiences that they didn't, younger, education being one of them. And so my dad went to machine shop school for high school. Right. So he was a machinist and then just wanted to do different things and kind of created this business life that he ended up building. And so, I bet our parents were similar in terms of, where they came from and then maybe hopes and dreams bigger for us. Maybe my parents, because they're full-blooded Italian each, that they just talk so damn much that they verbalized it more than your parents. That's probably it. You guys were in the South, you were so kind and gentleman and ladylike that, that they just didn't want to put that pressure, where my parents were like, hey, let's go. And they couldn't stop talking.
It was one of those things where I think it was there. I mean, obviously, my mother wanted me to be happy. She wanted me to enjoy it. She wanted me to have a love for the Lord. She wanted me to treat people decently. It's the same thing as you said about your parents. And that was the standards. And I completely agree. That was the standards she had for me. But I remember her also saying, listen, if you go off the path, if you go down a path that you don't want to be saved from, I'm not sacrificing the family to save you, right? That I'll do everything I possibly can. But if you decide to go out and rob somebody and kill 3 people, I'm not sacrificing the family to save you. But I'm going to try to teach you everything I can to keep you from doing that, right? So it's like, but that was the world they were in. They lived I used to laugh because I was the 5th child, right? I was an oops baby. And so my brothers and sisters are all much older than me. And they would I would go to my grandmother's house and go out in the backyard for hours. And it was just a jungle. And I was like, oh my God, I sit back and think about it now. And I see how helicopter parents were created, right? Because we go look at our own childhood. And my sister cracked me up one day and she goes, Gary, they had so many kids because they expected to lose 1 or 2. And I'm like, oh, she goes, you were the bonus baby. If they were going to lose 1, well, they didn't know you that well.
I love it. Well, I'll tell you what, it sounds like your parents did put expectations on you because, your mom giving that direction real clear. She set a true north for you.
Yeah.
That said, you create those behaviors and those consequences, you're going to live with them and you're going to do it on your own. So, I think having those guardrails that you put in your life, which were pretty clear, those are expectations. And look, to my knowledge, you haven't killed anybody.
Except that guy in Reno just to watch him die. Thank you, Johnny Cash. Thank you. There's so many topics I want to get on with you. First and foremost, because I have to, because I'm so Pro Football Hall of Fame. Board of directors, right?
Yes, sir.
How does one get on the board of directors? Because I know you're on so many different boards and so many different things. I get it because everybody wants a guy like Johnny on because you see problems, you address problems, you help find solutions. That's my take on you, right? So, but how did that happen?
Gary, you are too kind, but that happened really because of the great community leaders that are part of Canton, Ohio, where I was born, that are board of directors there. And so there's national board members and there's local board members, all serving the same board, of course. And so I was just so incredibly honored to be asked to serve one of the spots. And it's been an amazing experience to volunteer for the great sport of football. And the Hall is such a place of excellence that, any service that I can give to honor the heroes of the game, it's really an honor to do that. So
who's your favorite? Who's your favorite player? I mean, everybody has a favorite player, and you're not betraying anybody because you're on the board. Everybody gets to have a favorite player.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Or some of them.
the era that I grew up in and the friendship that I've developed with him is Bernie Kosar.
Bernie Kosar. How is he doing? Because I know there was a little while there they were worried about him, but how is he? And Bernie, totally underrated quarterback, University of Miami. He probably told you went to the wrong Miami, but people forget that. Old number 21, Bernie Kosar.
Bernie is doing amazing. There is somebody that it's just such a cool thing to be friends with him and to spend time with him when we're together. It's just amazing. The energy and first of all, the respect that he has for the sport, but the way that, Bernie has taken control of his own health. He's doing amazing. He's doing amazing things for his health, and he looks fantastic, better than ever. And he's just a wonderful guy.
It is, because it's a price. Anytime you play a professional sports, there's a price to pay. And with football, I think football is the ultimate price to pay, right? That is, I've tried to explain that to my kids, and we're football fans here. And even today, not as much as it was in Bernie's era, not as much as it was in Johnny Unitas's era, but it is a war of attrition. It is I'm going to force my will on you, or you're going to force your will on me. And one of us is not going to want to be on this field anymore. Right. And to go through that and to hear it, because listen, I played golf with a Hall of Famer, and I won't say it because I don't want to embarrass him or anything like that. But he literally couldn't bend over to chip because his hamstrings had been hurt so many times. Right. So he would stand up and do it one-handed.
Yeah. I've seen it. I get it. I mean, even friends of mine that played the game and my own sons. I mean, the wear and tear on the body, it is pretty intense, and to do it at a professional level, almost too much to comprehend. But I'll tell you, you really have respect for the older players of the game that, didn't do it for the money, and the equipment wasn't there. Right. And I love watching old clips, and, you see a game back then and the amazing game that it is today still. So it's America's favorite sport.
You touched it. The equipment is amazing. When you sit back and look, it used to be old plastic helmets with just a little bit of padding in it, right? And you know what I missed is, here's the thing I do miss about pro football. What I truly, truly loved was all the different types of face masks. Now they all are kind of the same, because I guess that works better on the concussion situation. I don't know. But when you sit back and remember the face masks, because they were so unique. Terry Bradshaw and Bob Greasy had the little thing face mask across. Steve Young had the cage. Right? And then Fran Tarkenton had the little
bar guard.
Yeah. And Fran Tarkenton had the little 2-barred thing. Right? So did Roman Gabriel. And now it's just the standard thing. And I miss that. Every now and then you'll see somebody who's got a little bit different, but boy, I miss the old face mask.
Yeah. The technology has changed so much. And seeing that, you go back to the early days when, the NFL was founded in Canton, Ohio. And, back in those days, and it was a chin strap. So, right? It's
leather helmet.
Totally different. Yeah. Yeah. But it's funny, when people look at my bio and see that on there, a lot of people gravitate towards that topic. So, it's a pretty cool thing to be on the Hall's board. And I just, play a very small part in what I do as a board member, but just so thankful that our country has that national museum. The world has that national museum for such a great sport.
It's shocking how big they are, the players.
I know.
Right. I mean, some are small, shockingly small. But I saw that picture as we record this. We'll just leave it because we don't know who's going to win the Super Bowl, so we'll leave that alone. But the picture of Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. Right. So we've seen the picture of her coming down on field and him there with her, and she comes up to his shoulder pads. Now, I don't know if you've ever met Taylor Swift. I have on a number of occasions. Here's what you need to know about Taylor Swift. She's 6 feet 1 inches tall. So when you see that picture of her coming up to Travis's chin,
Shows how big he is.
That's how big Travis Kelce is.
That's how big he is.
He's a big boy. It's a big, big boy. Oh, well, listen, okay. So I had to hit the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but I'm going to take a quick break to pay for this. I'm going to come back because I want to talk about your book and I want to talk about your life because it's fascinating.
Okay.
We're going to come right back with Johnny Sirpilla. If you're looking for Western wear, you need to find Winchester Western Wear at 1185 South Bascom Avenue in San Jose. You're not going to find the perfect outfit at the mall or the outlets. Come to the place with over 40 years of experience and all the top name brands like Ariat, Justin, Stetson, Tony Lama, and more. When you go to the great country shows at Shoreline, SAP, Club Rodeo, or Clola Shans, you'll be looking your best. From boots to hats to everything in between, with a knowledgeable staff that'll make the entire experience a fun one. Find them online at winchesterww.com. That's winchesterww.com. Or put this in your maps, 1185 South Bascom Avenue in San Jose. Winchester Western Wear. They'll help you find a look you love. Let's talk about the inevitable. End of life. Once I leave this earth, I can't do anything for my loved ones, but I've just learned by pre-planning a funeral or cemetery in advance takes the guesswork out when death occurs suddenly and your mind is clouded with grief. Dignity Memorial can help. My friend Tina Skurla pre-plans funeral and cemetery arrangements so loved ones don't have to. They're North America's largest provider of funeral, cremation, and cemetery services. They're dedicated to getting every detail right, and they do that by listening to you. I know it's a hard subject, but I also know we all see the sense and value of what Dignity Memorial does. Use the promo code Gary to get 25% off at Willow Glen Funeral Home. Reach out to my friend Tina Skurla today. She's committed to helping families not go through the tragedy of loss alone. Click on the link, use the promo code Gary, or email her at dmppa.tinaskurla.com or call 408-398-7050. So the book is called Life is Hard, but I'm Okay. And it deals with the tragedies and some of the tragedies in your life, some of the issues you faced, and a lifelong battle with anxiety. And I think that's the other side of driven. You know, it's the other side of Michael Jordan once said, it's not that he loves to win, he just hates to lose. He can't enjoy wins because he hates to lose. Right? Because when we talked about you earlier, and we talked about, you know, who that 15-year-old Johnny was, and you started off by saying he was anxious. So this is something you've always been there, always going, tell me how, I want to get into that, but tell me about the book and how you got there.
So the book is really, was written as a tribute to my wife for really all that she endured for us to have a family. And so I wrote the book to really help people when life is hard, because I do believe that life is hard. Even if you have a good life, there's plenty of things that go wrong in a good life, and life is hard. And so, you know, as a young guy, you know, coming out of college, even though I was anxious and I had anxiety, which, you know, back in the late 80s, they really didn't say anxiety. It was more like, you know, depression. And I said, well, I'm not depressed. I don't feel that I have depression. I'm really worried about a lot of things. And then, interestingly enough, you know, as it turned out, you know, there were some rough years ahead. And so through years of infertility, when we got married young and wanted to start a family, and that couldn't happen, and it took years, we finally became pregnant with triplets, and our lives, you know, drastically changed. And, you know, we were, you know, so fortunate to think that we could raise multiples. And I'd always dreamed of twins, never dreamed big enough of triplets. And we had two sons and a daughter, Nicholas, Mary, and Peter, and they passed away after they were born. And so, Gary, much like you said in the Michael Jordan quote, once I was at the lowest point of my life, in a very blessed life up to that point, is when I started to really think about, number one, getting out of bed every day to be a struggle. And I don't know if I can do it. To the point of saying, I was so low and in such a dark place and feeling um, really that this was my turn, right? I mean, everyone has hard times. So, okay, now this is ours. And my wife and I really embraced it. We didn't get stuck in the why me thought at all. It was, why not me? I mean, and then one of the chapters is called Why Not Us, right? Just because bad things happen to good people. But it was really from there that I said, no, there's got to be some blessings and graces that come out of this experience that makes me a better man, a better husband, a better business leader, and hopefully someday a better father. And it turns out, Gary, that it was just filled with those opportunities to find grace and beauty in our kids' short life. And the three of them, how much they impacted our family when we were that family of five. And then now this family of five that, with the three kids that we've been blessed to adopt and my wife give birth to, we have now created this family of the eight of us. And it's really been a reflection looking back of many things that I worried about and then changing that anxiety to looking for gratitude. And, the best practice for me in dealing with my anxiety, better than medication, better than meditation, I can't say better than prayer. That would sound awful. But is practicing gratitude. And when I do that, boy, it could make a gray day really bright and sunny.
Aren't the best prayers filled with gratitude?
That's right.
I mean, when Jesus taught us to pray, what's the first thing he said? Our Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thank you for all the stuff you've done. Thank you for our daily bread. Thank you. It's gratitude. I literally, there was a study that came out recently that they had the doctors talking about what you can do for your body to work better. Sleep more, drink more water, exercise. Number one thing on the list, find something to be grateful for every day. That's not priests. That's not preachers. That's not philosophers. That's not life coaches. Doctors. Doctors saying if you can find something to be grateful for every day, your body works better. Not just your mind, your body works better.
That's right. And our friend Jeff Bloomfield, right, talks about that so much with the neuroscience of the brain. Releasing that oxytocin, creating that and releasing it, lowering those cortisol levels. And when you are practicing gratitude, right, you are literally creating oxytocin in your body. And even when you're in the darkest day, and for us, we had those for years. And that's the thing that immediately could take us out is when we look to see what we are grateful for. And, so I challenge the listener there to think about that. Where do you find gratitude in our case, burying three children? Where's gratitude in that? And I have to tell you that gratitude appears all over because there was beauty in the time that they were alive. We were able to experience something that God gave us, this gift of parenting. Even though it was short, it doesn't mean it was insignificant. It was incredibly significant. And so their lives were incredibly significant. And so for me, Gary, that was a moment of looking at that and saying, I can reframe anything that happens in my life with my anxiety. I can reframe it to something that's really a gift and a blessing. So if you would ask me if I would wish the experience away of all the pain and heartache of Nicholas, Mary, and Peter dying, well, of course, I'd say I wish that they had lived, but knowing that that could not be and was not, would I wish it away? Absolutely not. I continue to feel it every day. I continue to honor them with this book and to have the opportunity to talk to great people like you about the insight that we can gain when we deeply feel something. And then when we try to say, I'm not going to be a victim to these feelings, I'm going to be uplifted by these feelings. But how am I going to be uplifted by this? Look at my wife in such sorrow. And I was able to be uplifted by the way our relationship and 33 years now of marriage, we're just cemented together. After that experience, coming up on their 29th birthday next month, what's going to be something we're going to fight about? I mean, really, what matters And so the gift that it's been to our marriage. So there's just so many things. And the gift that they are to their younger two brothers and sister that came after them, of the perspective that they have, knowing how fragile and important their lives are, knowing that their older siblings passed away. They've changed our kids today. We celebrate their birthday every year with a family tradition of sending balloons up to them. We did that since my son Bo created the idea when he was 3. And, today, all through college, my kids are all out of Chicago now, living in Chicago, but everyone grabs their 2 blue and pink balloons, and we FaceTime and we do our ritual. And it's a great thing to honor them. So I'm a big believer in reframing thoughts. It saved our lives.
Well, and you guys, I know you said you had advice for it, but a lot of times when a tragedy hits a marriage, it's easy to shake it apart because you fall into yourself. And honestly, it's when you fall into each other. We struggle for infertility too, right? We did. And I know exactly what you mean. The time of the month when you realize you're not pregnant. And my wife is a tremendously happy person. And she would fall into that, and it was like, it was everything that you could do to go, I understand. I'm disappointed too, but this is not a terminal diagnosis. God is infamous to me when he goes no, right? That what you don't hear is you hear the no and you don't hear the other part that is not right now. Or I got something else. No to this, but this is coming. Right. And that's not to belittle depression, because I have family members who suffer from depression. I remember talking to one of them and they were like, you know what it's like when you can't get out of bed, as you were just saying. And I said, I can honestly tell you, I don't know what that's like. I've never been, thank God, I've never had that burden put on me. And here's the thing. We all have burdens put on you. Everybody. Everybody has some burden that we're all carrying, and as you said earlier, the fallacy of Christianity is if you have faith that somehow you get a get out of jail free card from everything. You're still on this earth to learn something. You're still on this earth to make it better or do something, right? And that's that whole process that you had added texture. Because I tell this to my kids all the time. This is a tremendously universal size painting. And out of that universal size painting, we're seeing that much. We're seeing that much. So you don't know what it is. You don't know what the concept is. And the fact that you found the solace to understand this, it gave you an appreciation for your 3 other children. You were always going to love your kids, but it kicked it up a notch, which is the Sirpilla way.
Well, Gary, you're exactly right. I mean, the intensity of that and the gift of being a father, it's the greatest gift of my life. And so, to have that family unit and to know how hard we worked for it. And my wife, of course, working much, much harder than me, because I had the emotional challenge. Susan had the physical and emotional challenge. But you're exactly right in that idea of, God saying, no or not now. And that's when our prayer changed from, God, get Susan pregnant, to God, send us the children that you want us to raise. And wherever they come from and whoever they come from, you send us those kids. And, that's our son, Bo. It is the gift that he is, being born almost to the day, 9 months after Nicholas, Mary, and Peter died.
Wow.
He was being conceived as we were going through the darkest time in our life. God said, I have this precious gift for you coming. And we couldn't think that big. I never, grew up saying, I can't wait to get married and adopt a baby. Now I'm so happy that our story went that way, but I couldn't dream that big. And so, turning that prayer over to him. And then, when the doctor said that, Susan could never get pregnant again, and the damage that she had to her uterus and through a couple of difficult pregnancies, never again. And her life will be in jeopardy, and don't even try, because a baby wouldn't survive, and maybe her not either. And then we get pregnant 2 times accidentally. Um, when we had a 1-year-old. And, then that's our daughter, Bella. And then our son, Stone came, Bella was about 10 months old when Susan got pregnant with Stone. And so, you see these gifts coming and you just, understand. And they were scary pregnancies. They were, my wife was in bed for 5.5 months. It was awful. Again, for her. But, challenging with having a 1-year-old and then being inverted upside down in bed from November to March.
And you were paying a price too. I mean, I know you downplay it, but I know I've had a 1-year-old when a baby's on the way.
Yeah, it's a lot because, Bo could have his time with his mom, for, those 5 months sitting in bed with her. But, how long does a 1-year-old want to sit in a bed?
Mm-hmm.
And, so, he and I developed a bond then that was so amazing. And, it's been pretty cool to see what God's plans were for our family that, again, we couldn't even envision. So, now today our kids are 24, 26, and 28. And people say, oh, boy, that's great family planning. You guys, really did that well, having a kid every other year. And we just kind of laugh and say, oh, yeah. Yeah, we have full control of this. This is all because of our greatness and our great planning.
Isn't that part? And this is the thing I've tried to teach my kids from the moment they were born, because I think this will help them in every aspect of their lives. 2 words: pay attention. Just pay attention. If you can pay attention, you'll be ahead in school, you'll be ahead in life. Pay attention to when God blesses you. Pay attention, because it would have been easy for you to just gloss over everything, right? But when you start paying attention and being aware, and that's what are great comedians. Why are they great? They don't sit back and just go, I'm going to write this joke. They pay attention and say they see the stuff the rest of us ignore because we're all blummed in ours. This is, and we can't get out of ourselves. I think probably what made you such a dynamo in the business world is that I would be willing to bet you were paying attention to things, including the data, and knowing how to read the data. Jeff Bloomfield's great about that, right? We can all have data. There's lies, damn lies, and statistics. What there are. But being able to extrapolate and say, no, this is what this means. This is not what you think this means. This is that. That seems like I can't imagine you not being one of those people.
Well, thank you, Gary. I think that I am. I love your words, pay attention. You're so much smarter than me. You have 2 words. I just have one. It's mindful. Right. And so, see, you're twice as smart. I use one.
No, you're more succinct because you paid attention and says, listen, do we have to say both words?
Yeah, that's the only time an Italian's ever been that succinct with one word. But, when I think about my career impacted by our personal lives, the empathy and the mindfulness that I had for situations, that's actually one of the beauties and maybe superpowers of anxiety. Anxiety makes you extremely mindful and extremely intentional because my mind has to work and think, Gary, that I got to play 4 to 5 chess moves out at all times because I need to know what happens in each of those 4 or 5 scenarios where I can come out and be okay and have the others around me thriving. And so I don't want to ever get to a spot where I say, how did I get here? Right? I'm going to pay attention along the way to know how I got there, what went wrong, and what I'm going to do if I get to that point. And so that's where anxiety can work for you. And mental health disorders, I mean, they're challenging. They're not visible to the outside, but when you struggle with those thoughts, for me, it's made me a better business executive because I am mindful of the experiences that others are having when they're interacting with me. I also know that the amount of energy I have every day is limited to 100%, right? We can't make it more than that. Our full charge battery, it doesn't get fuller charged. It's just a full charge, right? can't keep going higher than that. And so I recognize that things that can take energy away from me, where anxiety can do that. And I think I can never do that intentionally to somebody else. I'm not saying I don't do it to other people because it's unintentional, but when I'm mindful and realizing that I can embrace with them and connect with them and hopefully leave them better for that exchange than worse, that's really what I'm called to do and what I have to do. And so, again, it's have to. There's the pressure, right? There's 15-year-old Johnny talking that I have to do that. And why do I have to do that? Because I'm aware that I can do that. And then once I'm aware that I can do it, now I have to do it because I don't want to put a negative impression on your day. And so it becomes a really mindful way of living that produces a lot of joy because I just typically don't have negative encounters.
I think most of the negative encounters I have are inside of my own car yelling at people who can't hear me.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, think about it. Do you ever get angrier or meaner than when you're in a car and somebody does something stupid? And it's like, and I remember I yelled at somebody in the car one time and my wife goes, "Why are you yelling at me?" I said, I'm yelling at them. And she goes, "They can't hear you. So therefore you're yelling at me." And I went, "Oh, okay. You're right." And you try to be mindful. You know, it's like you're saying, you bit it back into the business sense because on the two different sides, you're so driven and you look for I need to do this, and I need to do that, or do that. I'm the exact opposite. I don't know. You know, I am the epitome of, I've always depended upon the kindness of strangers. Remember that from Streetcar Named Desire? I've always depended upon the kindness of strangers. And that works out. It's learning to, and my wife is a lot like you. So it's the epitome of, okay, we need to do this. And that's what I've learned. I've gotten a lot better about it. And she's learned to go, do we really need to do that? Or is this just something you put on a list? Right? Does it really need to be done? Or is this just, you know, I need you to pick up. Why? Right? And so she's gotten a lot better, like the Italy trip. Usually she would have planned breaths if she could have. But my wife was wonderful. She would see, you know, what do we got planned? We got nothing today. We got nothing. And I remember looking at her one time and I'm like, I'm so proud of you. I can't stand it.
Yeah.
Right? That you gave the kids that time to go, right? And so it's an interesting dichotomy. You know, actually, you and my wife would be best friends because you guys think that's it. And you're both high up in the food chain world. And then there's me who sits in a room and talks to one of these.
Well, I'll tell you, Gary, what I love that you said there about the driving analogy and the wisdom of your wife is that point that, you know, they can't hear you. So therefore, you're yelling at me, right? That is such wisdom. That is so cool to hear it said that way, because when you think about it unintentionally, you're taking away from your wife's energy pool when, you know, you're showing that frustration. Now, for me, I'm such an awful driver and literally my kids and my wife, you know, if I go to get in the driver's seat, they're like, no, you know, I am not allowed to drive in the state of California with any family member. They saw me on the 405 and they're like, pull over and next exit, get off. My son's Stone. He was maybe 18, 19. He was like, you're not driving again the rest of this trip. And so I was like, hey, dude, buckle up front. You go. I'm happy to be in the back seat. I'm not a good driver. I don't need to try to profess that I'm something that I'm not. So for me, I, you know, look at that and say, you know, I welcome that input. And so I love your wife saying that because I don't yell in the car at anyone else because I'm thinking, you know what? I'm going to extend them the courtesy that I hope everyone else on the road is extending to me right now as I make a mistake as I'm driving. So as I cut in front of someone, give me graces because I just gave it to everyone.
I try to change my mindset, right? I try to change my mindset going, I don't know what that person's going through. So when they're doing something like that, I'll tell myself, you know, their wife could be having a baby. and he's trying to get to the hospital. And as soon as I do that, it gives them grace, right? But no, you're a bad driver. I can't park. I'm a horrible parker. I'm a very good driver, but my family, my sons are 12 and 14, and we'll pull in a parking lot with nobody there, and they're like, "Dad, you can do it." But I'm a really good driver. And everybody, my wife is a great parker. Oh, she sucks at driving so bad. You know what she is? She's that person who's in the left lane and goes, "Oh, I need to turn right in 50 yards." That, brake, boom, brake, boom. And I'm like, we're going home. You knew we were going to turn right. You made it. So every time she'll make fun of me driving, and I'm like, yeah. One day we're going to have like the driver's ed car. Remember those that had the two wheels?
Oh, yeah.
And that'll be everything. It'd be like a garbage truck, right? I'll drive. And as soon as we get there, you park. There we go.
Yeah. Hey, my daughter Bella's like me. She's not a fan of driving. In the driver's ed truck, the driver's ed instructor wanted to have a gas pedal on his side, not the brake to stop it. He wanted to be able to give it more gas to be able to go. So I feel like that when I'm driving with her. But hey, I'm like you with your wife in the parking lot, or your kids making that comment to you. I see an open spot between two cars, right up front, and I say, no, thank you. That is way too much effort to get in there. At the end of the parking lot, there's like 6 empty rows. And I say, and my family's all like, what are you doing? I'm like, come on, we go for walks together. Let's just walk into the grocery store together. It's a longer walk. Let's enjoy it. They think it's so odd. And I'm like, why would you finagle to get in, squeeze in there? 75 yards away, there's 6 spots. I can choose any one of them and just glide right in. So that's what I do.
We're going to be best friends after all. That's
right.
That's it. Listen, I know you are so busy, and I asked for an hour of your time, and you've given me an hour of your time. So I'm going to let you go and get on out of that. But tell me what you're doing now, because tell me about Encourage LLC. Tell me about that.
So really, after I retired from Camping World, I decided then that, I'm 50 years old. I can choose to do what I want to do. My dad, chose my first career, and I'm thankful for that. But I said, I think I'm old enough now to decide what I want to do. And so I started Encourage, which is from Thessalonians 5:11. Encourage one another and lift each other up, just as in fact you are doing. And I thought, I do love to encourage people. So started Encourage, and I do keynote speeches. So for companies or organizations that need keynote speakers, I do that quite a bit. I do board work. And so on about 5 different professional boards along the public company, private company sectors. And then on a couple of volunteer boards, we touched on one of them. And then, I wrote my book and, really just invest in companies then that are doing meaningful work in a variety of industries. So whether it's the population health management space, or it's the e-commerce space, or retail, things that I'm connected to. And, in the spirit industry, and I'm not a big drinker, but I'm connected to the branding of it all. Mm-hmm. So, that's what I do now, and just really have a lot of fun with it. And, go on podcasts often and have so much fun like we're having today.
Yeah, well, hopefully the next one you have schedules a little more professional than this outfit. But
no, you've been fantastic. It's been so much fun.
Well, it was interesting to me. I do one thing before you go, because I saw this in your thing. So you work with Bob Dylan?
Well, so my college roommate started a spirit brand called Heaven's Door, and I'm partners with him. And so he works with the team there with Bob Dylan. I'm more, off to the side as his partner. And but it's pretty cool to know that just a rock star, literally, that he is. And we say that about people in a lot of industries, but he's literally a rock star. And then he's just a man with such incredible vision and artistry. So it's pretty cool to have Heaven's Door and be part of that journey with Mark, my college roommate and fraternity brother, and then, a bunch of other cool investors.
Wow. You've done well with what the Lord's given you. And you're continuing to do it. So this has been such a delight. Your website, they can find you at
Encourage33.com.
And we'll have all the links here too. And I've just so enjoyed this. Hopefully we'll do this again, and we just won't have anything to talk about except how awesome your shirts are. That's all I'm going to.
No, Gary, I need to get inside your head more. I need to understand more, because I'll tell you, for the listeners, I have not started a Zoom call with someone that comes out of the gate 0 to 60 as fast as you. And it's like, all right, this is how we're going to roll. This is the way we're going to do this. And I was like, let's go.
Well, I love to put people's names in songs. And so I'm sitting there looking at John Sirpilla. And I started going, Johnny Sirpilla, Johnny Sirpilla, Johnny Sirpilla. It's Hava Nagila, if you guys don't. And on that note, once we've sang Hava Nagila, Johnny Sirpilla, we're done.